Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to look at Emma Frost's uniform in particular because a lot of you have requested it in the comments down below, so I do appreciate you guys doing that. And you know, Emma Frost is technically the most expensive character that's getting a uniform in this update. You know, Colossus, it's hard to get his bios, but you can definitely farm them. Cyclops is very easily farmable, but Emma Frost not only is expensive to get, but her uniform is among the most expensive in the game, so that's why I usually recommend a Mega Mythic uniform rank up ticket. So I want to discuss, you know, first of all, what the uniform actually changes. There are some bugs already, or at least some visual issues, but again, I have to state with these videos, with these pre-update videos, that everything you see can be changed. These are not finalized stats. But I am, once again, a little bit disappointed with the uniform effect. I didn't bring it up in the video earlier with Cyclops, but with Cyclops as well, it has the same issue of really not adding a lot in terms of the uniform effect. For Cyclops, it just adds a 10% fire damage bonus, and then it increases his visor upgrade skill damage by 4%. I'm serious, it's 18% with his other uniforms, and then it is 22% with this uniform, and then it adds, of course, the 10% fire damage, and then it also adds 30% to his passive rather than, I believe it's 15%. So it's a really kind of pathetic uniform passive effect, and Emma Frost is basically as lazy, as simple, because the other effect there, the 35% chance, is already there, the incapacitation one. It's so basically the only new uniform effect. The skill changes are there, yes, but the uniform effect itself, 10% increased energy attack, is not very interesting or very powerful in any way. Now, the uniform itself is absolutely beautiful. It's by far one of the best uniforms in the game. I have to say, they've done a much better job of detailing those fire wings. It even looks better than Jean Grey's. It doesn't float behind her. If you go kind of sideways, it's literally attached to her body. It looks beautiful. Her heels are on fire. This is excellent. This is amazing. As far as the actual skill changes go, I think the big thing for a lot of people is that all of her skills change from mind damage to fire damage except for her first skill. The thing with Emma Frost is her first and second skills usually suck. Like, they're just terrible. So that is something to consider, but basically those mind damage obelisks are obsolete technically. It's kind of like the Jean Grey situation where the fire damage obelisks were obsolete, or not obsolete, but less useful, and now you want it to go for fire damage, but it's in reverse, except she doesn't have a tier 3 skill. However, to note that the big changes for her uniforms are, of course, the fact that she has fire resistance down on her 5th skill, which also ignores immunity. So unlike Cyclops' fire resistance down, this one will apply to world bosses, so it does bump up her damage a lot. She also has a change to her 3rd skill. It's a pretty substantial change. Her 3rd skill now, on the plus side, so the benefits of her new 3rd skill is that it actually does damage. You can see there it's got 35 damage, 135% of energy attack, with an additional 1094 fire damage added, and I believe those are the only buffs. It also has a stun, but the stun was always there. With her old uniform, or with her base look, the illusion that she summons does not do any damage. So you can see there's no damage at all whatsoever. It just has the apply to self, and then it has the things that it creates and the stats that it gives. However, this one has an illusion with 85% of her stats for 5 seconds. That illusion actually shows up, and it is a targetable illusion. So this is good for PvE because the boss will target the clone, and then it's good for PvP, especially against someone like, for example, Captain Marvel. You can use Illusion Stab, and she'll use her 4th skill against that illusion, and you can still do damage. On the flip side, here's where we have a bit of a problem with bugs or with incomplete skill effects and kind of text. It says there that it summons an illusion with 50% of the stats for 20 seconds. That's a lie. You'll see from the gameplay that it summons an illusion for 3 seconds. It's about 3 seconds, and the illusions attack, which is where the damage comes from, but then they disappear. So that is a problem. It's not a huge nerf, but it is a little bit of a nerf. Now, you lose survivability, but you gain damage, so some people might prefer that, but I just want to point that out. But overall, I do think that she is a more powerful character now, and of course, you have the additional way of ramping up her damage with Flame, which makes Ghost Panther and someone like Satana even more valuable. So we're going to jump into some gameplay now. We're going to go up against this boss right here. I forgot to call Obsidian. And we're going to, first of all, check her out with her new uniform using Satana and Ghost Panther. So she's got 120% fire damage, and she's got the additional buffs, the additional supports from Ghost Panther. Now, one thing I want to say about Emma Frost before we get into this, I don't like playing Emma Frost. Personally, I think I like her a little bit better now, but I still think she's very difficult to use. And I think with this uniform especially, she has an extremely tight rotation. Now, I just got guard broken there, and that's part of the problem for Emma Frost. But I like using 2, cancel 3, cancel 5, cancel 4. And it's a very, very tight rotation. I missed it there. I think she definitely benefits more than other characters from attack speed, so keep that in mind. What I've noticed is that you can instant cancel her 5th skill and get that effect, but you want to wait on the 2nd skill because it creates that orb, and that orb will do damage. The 3rd skill you want to cast every single time because it gives you super armor, so you don't get guard broken. And that's why with the very first rotation, when I didn't use the 3rd skill, I did get guard broken. So it's an extremely tight rotation with lots of kind of instant cancels, but you can see that when you get those instant cancels to work, again, with max skill cooldown and almost max attack speed, I would say is probably beneficial. You can do some pretty great damage. We're not having the best time at the moment, but we will get, I think, a better shot here for the damage. We did about 12 bars in a minute, but this is a bit slow. I do think that her damage, while it's not outstanding with the new uniform compared to her old uniform, it is good. It might not be that much better, but it is good. Now, keep in mind, with Quentin Quire coming into the game, Kid Omega, you can now bump up Emma Frost's stats and her damage using a mind damage leadership with his 40%. So that might be a reason to actually potentially skip this uniform. And I know some people don't want to hear that, but I did want to say that because, you know, for some people that already invested, see, I just got guard broken there. For some people that already invested in the uniform, they might be, you know, annoyed to have to get another one. Now, I want to show off the clones because you can see here that it says 20 seconds up in the top, but then right around 17 seconds, they just disappear. They're gone. They're gone and they're not coming back. The buffs stay, but the clones disappear. So you press the skill, the clone pops up there. It says 20 seconds, but then it's gone. So it's clearly just a 3-second clone. It's not a 20-second clone. Now, do I think 20 seconds is too long? Absolutely. But I do think that they should just make it a 5-second clone. I don't really know why Netmarble tweaks these sorts of things. There's really no reason to take the clones away. Again, she's not going to become too powerful if you just give her those same clones and you also give them some damage. It's really not that big of a deal. So I do think that Netmarble should, even if they divide the stats. I mean, the old illusion had 85% of her stats. These illusions only have 50%. That's fine. No one cares. But at least make them available for 5 seconds. Make them targetable so that Emma Frost can use that for defensive purposes. And then people will be happy. The other thing to consider for this new uniform, and I don't mean to kind of rain on this uniform's parade, but you can't use Nick Fury. You can't use Coulson. You can't use Wave. And you can't use... maybe that's it. But yeah, you can't use any of the hero-only buffs. So any of the hero-only support characters won't work on Emma Frost anymore. So even though I'm not using the same team up here, because now this Emma Frost obviously doesn't need the fire damage from Ghost Panther or the fire damage from Satana's leadership, she's going to do really well because she has all these crazy buffs from her hero, and this is with her old uniform. Now again, it's pretty much the same rotation, although I do think that her old uniform is a little bit worse. I do think that the instant cancel of her new 5th skill is a little bit better, but you can see that the damage is really good with her old uniform. Now, of course, she does have a bit more. I missed my 5th skill there. She does have a bit more of a buff here than she did with Satana and Ghost Panther. Obviously, you have the 60% from Nick Fury, and then you have, or the 55%, and then you have the 45. You have 100% basically, whereas Ghost Panther is only giving you the 45%, so it's basically double. But it is something to think about. Now, I think most big-time Emma Frost fans don't really care, and they're going to get that uniform anyways. But you can see that her old uniform performs quite well. Now, again, we might see, or I might, discover more, more situations or more areas in which her new uniform might be better. But since she does elemental damage regardless, I don't really see the difference between it being mind damage and it being fire damage. So I do think, again, Netmarble just needs to put more into these uniforms to differentiate them from, especially from old uniforms. She's not getting that big of a bump to justify not only paying 1,000 crystals for the uniform, but then paying, you know, real money, $50, to get a Mega Mythic uniform upgrade ticket. We're going to try one more team up with her new uniform here. This time, instead of going with fire damage, because I have a feeling her base stats are a little bit low, we're going to go with Cyclops. So he's going to give her 35% all attack, then an additional 5%, so 40% all attack plus 30% energy attack. So she's getting less fire damage, but she's getting a, you know, the same in terms of all attack slash energy attack. She's getting a 70% bonus. So we're going to check that out here and see what kind of goes, what happens. I do think she's a bit easier to play, and again, I'm not a fan of Emma Frost, the play style with all the canceling, but I do think she's a little bit easier to play with this new uniform because of the sort of the effectiveness of instant canceling, 5 and 3, or 3 and then 5. And then landing everything on the 4th skill. We are using a CTP of energy to get that chain hit damage from 5 and 4, but I do suspect that CTP of Rage would also be very good because it won't punish you for missing your proc nearly as much, whereas with this uniform, or sorry, with the CTP of Energy, if you miss your proc and you proc on the wrong skill, you're going to be losing a boatload of damage. You can see the damage is comparable, and I'm probably able to get a little bit more damage out of this uniform compared to her old one. You can definitely squeeze out a little bit more, but again, is it worth the reinvestment? Because if you have the old uniform at Mythic, I don't know. I think Netmarble needs to make it a little bit more enticing to get this uniform rather than just the aesthetic appeal. I understand that Netmarble does not want to, you know, create too much power creep, but in a situation where I have to cast her 3rd skill and I have to cancel it in order to not miss my proc, you can't even get the damage out of the 3rd skill anyways, because if you instant cancel 3, you don't get those clones to show up and actually deal damage. So the funny thing is, her sort of optimal skill rotation might be, especially if you don't have guard break immunity and you don't have super armor because she only gets it from her 3rd skill, her optimal skill rotation might cancel the 3rd skill before you can even get the damage anyways. So adding the damage to it and then nerfing it by taking the clones away, whereas people were using the clones defensively before this with the old you know, black uniform, is kind of an interesting sort of contradiction that, you know, I think deserves a closer look. So again, kind of like Cyclops, I do think this uniform is the best one for her, and aesthetically it's by far the most beautiful, but I don't think there is enough here to really justify this huge investment unless you're a massive fan. I'll have to test it out finally on my own account with my own Emma Frost. This isn't a maxed out build. I've got 66% crit rate, 190 crit damage, then I'm capped out on ignore defense and cooldown, and it's pretty much the same stats for this uniform with a couple of differences. There's a little bit less ignore defense because the optional uniforms are not mythic, but otherwise, you know, 66 and 190. The attack speed's a little low. That was the only thing that I would really change. But yeah, I feel like we're getting a few of the same vibes from the Fantastic Four uniforms, where visually the uniform is beautiful, the skill effects of the uniform are also beautiful and they're really well done, but then the actual uniform effects don't add nearly, and I mean, it's 10% energy attack. That's not worth 1,000 crystals, and then the actual skill changes don't seem to bump up her damage enough when you consider the fact that you're losing the hero tag, which severely limits the number of characters that you can use. I could use Ebony as a leadership with the 20% extra damage to universals, and Ghost Panther, but that's only going to equal 65%, which is just a little bit more than Nick Fury adds alone by himself. So I don't want Netmarble, and I don't want people listening to take away from this that I think their side should be changed back from supervillain to hero. I don't want that. I love the fact that they're supervillains. I think this does point to two potential issues. The first one being that these uniforms need to be tweaked and they need to be stronger than they are. Even though it's power creep, we're paying for it, so it should be a little bit better than it is better than the old uniforms for both Cyclops and Emma Frost. And then secondly, that villains need more support characters so that they don't feel like they're falling behind massively compared to heroes, because we want villains in the game, but we don't want to sacrifice all that damage that we're used to having, and we don't want to have all these dusty support characters that we can't use all of a sudden because we are using a bunch of villains. So maybe it would have been nice to throw in an extra character in this update that had the villain support, situation like a Coulson, but for villains or something like that, with guaranteed crit and stuff like that. But maybe that's something for an update down the road on Halloween or something like that. Let me know what you guys think of Emma Frost, the Phoenix 5 member who looks the hottest. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you later today. Take care.